Hello. Oh, I just woke up. Skilly. And I'm getting ready to watch the third and last one about racism, and I'll give my thoughts. Ooh. It was so hot today that had some problem getting everybody together to mow the lots, and person's sick. Type of craziness. And it was just too hot. I started to sit out there. It was just too hot. So I fell asleep. Anyway, about racism. I'm gonna watch the film. I'll probably do another one after I watch the film. I probably should take notes, but I'm not. But my thoughts on racism is that, see, this land never had borders. This land had belonged to the people. And the people that it had belonged to, well, I'm going to tell you a whole story. And about one part of racism. It's a story of Africans, Native Africans that were, busy building. They were building castles. And they had to stop their building because they had reports that these European Caucasians were coming, or I don't know the name they called them. Well, they thought they were barbarian because they didn't bathe and they wall up in their own. They shit where they slept. Anyway, supposedly about it. But anyway, so they left. They took the important stuff it's like they didn't have black soot and all this stuff on the wall because they didn't use candle and oil for their fuel. They used electricity in a form sort of close to like how Tesla sort of wanted to use it. But anyway, that's how the story goes. So they well, actually, they use copper and gold and stuff to extract it, but sort of like Tulsa. But anyway, in the story, the ones in Africa that you might say are the rulers of the land, the one that was the women. They started off counting. How many days to the next cycle. They came up with 28 days. They figured out that when they could get pregnant, they use math to, for everything in their life. They were surrounded by nature, and they had to use food, had to use the plant life for food and clothing, and for their shelter. They know how to make bricks out of mud and water and a little hay, and so they knew all these things, and so the Caucasians were coming, and the Caucasians have been at war, perpetual war, supposedly since their first, since they left. Since they got separated. They got separated from during their travels. Certain groups got separated and started developing. And what happened was, anyway. So as the story goes, when the Caucasians came, because that's another story. When the Caucasian came, they sing all this beautiful stuff. And they were following it because one of the I want to say that she's the head god, because they sort of would call her that because she gave birth to to a nation pretty much in a sense, but not God like the guy not like a Jesus, no, not like a God up in space, but like a God that emulates the earth gift coming forth and coming alive and being alive, because you know. But anyway, her and her 12 or 13 sisters on one side, and then she had two groups of first cousins, I believe, that also were females, which was another 13. So it's 13 sisters, 26. Okay, so it's 26. They sort of, each one of them branched out. Each one of them branched out with their family, and immediate extended family in some instances, because they lived in extended households. So the Europeans, they desperately wanted to know what they're doing, to them, when they see these women with a big pot mixing some food up, mixing plants up, and then poof comes out with something, they're like witches. They don't know they're witches or gods. So they go after them, and the sisters divide. The cousins, maybe there was 26 women cousins in the original 13. But anyway, they fell back while the other ones had advanced, and they went on a waterway across the water, probably to South America. And as the story goes, so what happened is that when they caught up with the women, they got they just started killing them. They killed a bunch of them, and 13 of the other sisters. That's what happened. There was 26. They slowed back, stayed back, and the original 13 went on over to the Americas, or South America particularly, and the other one, and the other 13, they sort of roamed, to distract from because and they had they came back, and they went through the strait and came down to Canada, and made it to America to get away from the war. And so then they're hot, they want to follow them. But anyway, in the meantime, they killed the other 13, and not everybody in all the 13, because they're getting their extended families, because in the high, the women was she was in charge of more of the spiritual stuff in a way, and that had a lot to do with plant life and healing, and they usually train male in that sense to be more with the men, because the women end up they had to be midwives and so everything that the women knew, the men knew, but it wasn't like they were separate from the women in power or strength. It's just that because the men and women were united. It was just that in certain areas that men had the strength to do it. The women were more of the thinkers and very clever, and they had very clever and smart children, and that was one of the main things that they anyway. So they went and they killed it. So they killed the 17, and you have to understand that they're in Africa. They're women of melon, and so they wanted their children, and usually, and well, as the story goes, that the difference between how the women were ruling in all Africa, and the reason why they were so prosperous and so enlightening with knowledge of nature and the heavens, was because they had never went to war, where the white folks had been in perpetual war since well, since the day they killed their first female, but and the men started taking over. The closest thing to how you would see them in human behavior is if you study the baboons. That is the closest you come to the Caucasian behavior, even to this day. As to where the closest behavior that these women have is probably your true and excellent example of human, because of the being able to develop and being clever and using tools and using all the gifts of God, and see the difference between the 13 and the other 26 women, even the families, was that the first 13 men, the keepers of the land. So that's you know, like the white people, they're leaving like areas they done burnt out and all this to conquer it, and you know, they didn't have the wear out to be clever enough to think on how to do this stuff themselves. Main reason because all their energy has been concentrating on dying. You know, like they're just killing each other. They're cannibals. You know, if they're being jailed, they're hostage men and women. If the woman has a baby, and like they've just been giving like, you know, like just some grass or water, they'll go ahead and they became cannibals. And where the original group out of Africa, they were vegetarian that did eat meat. You know, they would you know, and what you would call what the white men try to say they sacrificed. They never were cannibal, but the white people were. There's a famous island where the natives witnessed the white people eating. You know, the white people wanted to eat one of them, but and then they went back, and that tribe started to eat as enemies. So that's why it's very important that you don't introduce, like you don't when they go to a new area, anything that they see you do, they think that's what your people do, and they'll emulate it. Anyway, so what happened was that the Caucasians, after finding out they didn't have the main one they wanted, the females they wanted, they go to the normal go-to stuff, just, you know, slaughter and hang and burn people, and, you know, like pull. And this is like the Great Crusade. This is the Christians. The Christian soldiers marching. Anyway, it's them, but they got on white with a big, you know, thing over here. But they're out and they're murdering, they're hanging, and you know. Anyway, because their whole objective is that, and so anyway, so the story goes that this Caucasian leader, some type of king, but he was in the military at that time. He was the military commander. He was so frustrated. He was so mad. He goes back to with the rest of the, you know, the men. And by now, you know, they had left their women in such a long time. You know, like about 7 years of this one campaign to get these one people. They left their women. These guys are. You know, they had wanted these women. They had wanted to rape them, but before, you know, the ones that they didn't kill and massacre and torture, the other ones just as soon as like they found out these men wanted to have sex with them, they went and killed themselves. So the story goes is he was so frustrated because, you know, we're gonna this you know, this is gonna be a world for us men. We don't need women, you know, so. So they were saying ever since then, the war, a racist war, has been a war to, and you can see it even today. It's been a war really because man was jealous and thinking that woman was God. And the white man came and saw like, let's say, like a Cleopatra, Ra, or there was so many numerous great and marvelous leaders, not only in Africa, but Ethiopia, Nigeria, and they had other names other names than the ones that I'm. Well, Nigeria was always not the whole continent, but anyway, there was different names too, and so all this area was basically it got that the African continent got its intelligence and got its cleverness because it had women that was in their eyes in charge of was like in charge of keeping the earth. Like where I come from, people are from this here, Mississippi, Bahia. It means the keeper of the land. And that's what they were, the keeper of the land. And the white man's the opposite. If you notice, when he goes through his wars, like, just go back to Vietnam, because it's very vivid in my childhood. But, like, you have to Agent Orange. So you have to spray it all with, basically weed killer. So you're killing everything. It's like when you're out in your yard and you're spraying for those weeds. That's what Agent Orange is. So then after they spray all the reading with Agent Orange because they're dealing with the jungle, then people were farming and doing the rice paddies, they fill those up with land mines. So you go in there and so they can't come back to that area. They have to, and ever since the time when they decided to there's going to be a man's world and men going to rule it, women ain't going to rule nothing, and we're going to figure out how to have our own babies, and they have. It just doesn't work out. They just can't make geniuses. So that is the basic roots of racism. Is that first, to be so jealous, to feel so inferior, to feel that you're not good enough, because these women, they weren't going to have sex with them. These men had babes. They got their diet habits and everything about them is that they don't comprehend their own body, and the church right then pretty much was like they were snatching up their kids. You can read about how Christianity at its early stages in Europe had Spanish influence, and how they had basically tortured people to death, boiled, but all of Europe was cannibals. They were cannibals, because the queen at that time said, "Oh, I own all this land that food's on." Well, they also had a war on different animals, because that was the other thing, because the women had told them that, you can't treat animals like, you can't do this. We're all the same, we're all one. So that was another thing they were afraid of, that a bear might end up, being their ruler, or a gorilla. So that's why you see so many animals in the zoos, because they're killing their natural habitat, and it's a way of just destroy. That's why we have so many animals extinct. Anyway, I'm gonna go watch the last of these 3 movies. It's about the rules of racism. So I told that story very bad, but just think that it's an old story. But I'll probably get a refreshment. But just know that when the women ruled in Africa, before the white man came and started trying to they just came killing. If they didn't kill with their weapons, then their next thing was to have sex with you, because then they would kill you with their sex. So, and even sex today in modern time is used as a way to oppress. Because that's all. Like here, that's all the men worry about. I think I had like a little shirt slip where he might have saw a little bit when I was outside of the breast. They're not going to be proper or anything. They're trained, because before they hit puberty, that somebody's making them look at dirty movies, and their first reaction is to look away, and whoever's trying to teach them all about sex makes them stay. So like you get men that are like, oh my God, she's got breasts. So anyway, and that's modern time. Old time, women breastfed. That's how you had healthy kids. That's how you had kids that had immune against all the stuff. So we have black women not breastfeeding. If they do breastfeed, they'll breastfeed their men, which can make you have these it's, I don't know why you want to do it, because like you're my age, and it's even if your breasts are small, they just sort of they'll be like. It'd be like when balls drop, an old man's ball drop. Anyway, we're not taking care of God's land. We're not living with nature. If anything else, the white man has proven that he is a murdering psychopath. And like with me, I don't get, like, a lot of people, they see me as different, but I notice around here, all of them got whooped. When I tell them I got whooped, I didn't get whooped as a child. They're like, yes you did, they can't comprehend. Matter of fact, I got to bend over backwards to comprehend their bullshit, that is just really hateful, but they will pick a fight and die before they want to believe the propaganda. And it's hard to change the early development of this propaganda. So the overly sex with the men is supposed to make them, it's a way of controlling. It makes, you can't be worried about politics and follow the money trail of the politics to find out why, they're putting all my people in jail, or, it's a lot easier just to say, oh well, we got half of our high school graduates this year in jail, and it's just their fault. So you don't have to do anything. It's because of the melon. Well, it's not because of the melon. It's because of the way our politics are, and our politics is geared really to oppress and objectifize women in such a way. But they made one mistake. Well, a bunch of them. They made one mistake. They were wrong. Yes. But anyway, they were wrong. And that's all. That's one of the things. That's one of the most important things that we could correct, and you could end racism right today, is to look at women as being like made in the image of God, and God gave birth to this earth, and why couldn't? And if you know a man that had a child, is a woman. Life was brought here. Everybody's born by a woman. Every animal, and we're made in the image of God. God birthed forth life. And it's not a yin and yang, that's another thing. They're like, well, women give life, we're supposed to give that. No. Men are supposed to be an important part of keeping God's land, keeping God's promise, which she's not. Oh, let me go on and listen to it. See, and that's that's the stories I was told on racism. Now let's hear. I'm going to listen to this one again. It's the last of the hidden colors. All right. Good morning.